Okay, welcome to the Timing Research live web show for the Week 48 report. I have Doc Severson and Neil Batho here with me. Doc is with Trading Concepts Inc. and Neil is with
Trader Review.
TraderReview.net. So if you're new to Timing Research, basically what we're doing is creating a crowdsourced sentiment indicator by surveying a large and diverse group of traders every week and getting their opinions on the current state of the markets. So, um, so we're going to jump right into the report here. I'm going to switch my view here. So the main question of the Timing Research report is asking traders to guess the direction of the markets for this week. This is the report that came out last night, and of the respondents, 53% think the market's going higher, 46% think it's going lower. And so, Doc, what do you think about the S&P 500 for this week?
I think we just put in the high today. That's based on historical precedent for this week. Typically what we find, if you look over the last 5 years, this week prior to Labor Day has generally been sideways to maybe drifting down. So I think this week is when you know, the big players are taking their very last vacation before they clean house and really set up for the fourth quarter for the year. So that's one data point. Again, like if you look at the last 5 years, there's only 1 year where we had a decently strong week. The other thing, too, that I'm seeing is, in terms of the way that I view charts, is we have a daily chart that has made an extreme move. Every other chart that's out there, monthly and weekly, everything is still showing a fair amount of power. I do expect to see higher prices before long, but I think this week, when you add everything together, I think the high print has been put in, and I think we're just going to drift sideways to down between now and Friday.
Okay, and Neil, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think pretty much sell covered calls on everything you have for until the end of the week. And especially the gap up this morning makes me really think that it's been a high for the week. And it's true the last week of August usually isn't a very good week for trading. No reason to buy any new positions at all right now.
So you both would guess lower for this week, right?
If I had to guess from the open today to the close on Friday, I would say lower.
Okay.
Maybe not substantially, but lower.
Okay. And for question 3 is a hypothetical bet. You know, asking traders if they had $100, how much would they bet on their guesses being correct. This is actually an interesting week where both the average for the higher guesses and the average for the lower guesses turned out to be almost exactly the same at close to $56. And that's to gauge the confidence in the guess for question 2. If you guys had to rate your confidence, Doc, what would you say?
All of it.
All of it.
I would say all of it is being sideways to down.
All right. And Neil?
Well, is this play money or is this all the money I have in the world?
Yeah, it's just $100. If you were given $100 and could bet it or keep it, basically.
90.
Okay.
Now, is this Canadian money or is this U.S.?
Yeah.
U.S.
Forgot about that, but yeah, U.S. is
It's a Federal Reserve note. Is that U.S. money? I don't know.
yeah. Um, so yeah, this was a pretty neutral week overall for the the sediment. We often see pretty large swings in one direction or the other, but uh, this was the sentiment overall was very close, and like I said, the confidence on both sides was extremely close. Um, so that's what we're seeing for this week. So move on to the open response questions. I think you guys talked about this a little bit already, but do you have any other events or news or anything that you'll be watching for this week that might affect the markets? um, I'll go ahead and say that in the you can see here in the report the most often things that were mentioned were Ukraine, the Fed meeting, ISIS, Russia, index, Jackson Hole for the Fed meeting again, and Gaza. So, Doc, do you have anything else?
No, economically, I think the only thing looking through this week that's really going to be watched is going to be GDP. Chicago PMI usually is watched, but GDP is probably the biggest one. This is a pretty light week. All this news that is up on the list here has already been priced in.
Yeah, I think a lot of those words that you see there, I mean, when we're talking about the stock market, you can't just be talking about equities. You got to be talking about currencies, gold, oil, those types of things. So I think a lot of these words here are more related to the commodities, oil, gold. I mean, you look at the downturn in oil, I mean, that's because Ukraine's not nearly as much in the news anymore. So the supply is the threat to discontinued supply isn't there as much. So I don't think these things affect equities as much as they're affecting commodities.
Yeah. Jason, are you with us now?
I think so. Can you hear my voice?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, good.
Jason was having some technical issues, but looks like he's with us now. So
Yeah, I'm sorry I joined late, guys. So thanks for waiting.
it's all right. Yeah, this is the first show with guests, so bound to have a couple of problems here. But thanks for joining, and let's go back real fast and get your opinion on the market. So, like we talked about, question 2, Gauges, asks people to guess higher or lower for the week for the S&P 500.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are your thoughts on that, Jason?
Okay. Well, I think it's important that you note that I only watch the S&P as a corollary indicator. I don't actually trade it every day like maybe your other guests do. So my point of view might be maybe not as tradable of an answer. But my point of view is that the underlying bullish sentiment is huge, overwhelming. It's above 90%. And typically in a situation like that, you're headed for a correction. We've got 2 events this week that I think that would do that. One of which is the dollar index being above the 82 handle consistently now and gapping higher today, and the fact that the S&Ps just went through 2,000, first through the even. I would be looking for a correction in the S&P this week. By the end of the week, I would expect it to be lower. But that's me. Again, I don't trade it every day, and I'm not maybe in as qualified a point of view, a position to give you as qualified a point of view as maybe some of your other guests would be. But I noticed that from what you're trying to do with this indicator, as well as what I see with other consensus indicators, and once they get to a certain degree of percent, usually you're very close to a move in the other direction. And you've got a great clue I found this morning for talking with me and my customers is Citibank or Citigroup. They're currency analysts in London suggested that the euro was ready to break lower, and they suggested to their clients to go short. And my my first thought was why weren't they selling into the highs like other
No.
traders might have been, So I'm looking at that going, that's a good clue that we're going to get around that we're going to get a correction lower in the index. They're late, and they're looking at reasons to be short, and it's all public knowledge. They're late, and I think that there's a lot of bullish consensus out there for higher stock prices, bullish consensus for higher dollar. All that's probably still very accurate, but our goal is to have more money in the account on Friday than we do on Monday, and part of that means that we've got to be prepared for corrections, which are healthy, inevitable. They're gonna happen. They're normal, right? And there's clues that say those are getting closer. And my thought on S&P is that there's a lot of things that seem to be adding up. You got gold down at the very bottom of its recent trading range. You've got crude all the way down near the bottom. You got all the indices up near record highs. You got the dollar up near 12-month highs. All the currencies are kind of correlated that way. A correction the other way would, even if it was only 3 or 4%, is big enough to scare the hell out of most people, and it would be normal, natural, and reasonable to expect. So I would think that we're probably headed for correction this week. That would be me. It is coming. It is coming. So
yeah, that's okay. Sounds good. What would you say your level of confidence is for question 3? What hypothetically, what amount would you bet?
Well, I looked at that question as asking me what you're asking me. Tell me if I'm right on this, but I looked at that question. You're asking me, of the money that I would commit to a trade, how much of it would I commit? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, you can think of it that way.
Okay, I would say I'd be at 50%. I would say if I can do a 10 lot, I'd put 5 shorts out today. That's how I would do it.
Okay.
I might look to sell into a little bit higher prices. I might cover it by the end of the week. There's questions that are not asked here that have to do with actually executing.
Right.
But I would go 50% short if I was looking for a top this week. I'd go 50% short. That's how I would do it.
Okay. Sounds good. And then we had moved on to question 1, which is the first of the open response questions. Did you have any other news events or anything going on this week that you'll be watching that might affect the markets?
Well, actually, yeah. I would hazard a guess. This is just me. I don't know if this carries as much weight as other people might say, but I think that Thursday's German CPI data and other Eurozone CPI data is going to be very important. I would, if that comes in below expectations, I think it's going to really hammer home the fact that the week after that, the 4th, that you're going to see either the European Central Bank actually make a move to help stimulate the monetary policy, or they're going to hint at one before the end of October, November. In other words, if they're getting another week of data that says we just don't have any growth that's big enough to cause inflation, and we're really at the bottom end here. In fact, some inflation numbers from last week, not this week, but last week, were negative. And what do you do with that? That, I think, is big psychological import. I think that that would be something that would cause the euro to take one more nosedive lower, because I think people are really watching these central banks. That would be really the best thing to say. The event would be they're really watching the central banks. I don't think the headline risk for overseas political events are as important as what the central banks are doing. And boy, you get another round of inflation data, which that's the only mandate that the European Central Bank operates under. There isn't any, and you get another one that's like 0 to negative inflation. You just can hear people saying that the ECB's got to do something now. They just hinted at that at Jackson Hole last week. So I would say that if we get another round of really bad German or Eurozone CPI or PPI or inflation data this week, that would be the one that I would watch. And that is, again, the reason I'm saying that is because I trade currencies.
Mm.
I don't know if the currencies would have a direct relationship to stocks as easily, at this point. But that's what I would be watching.
Okay. And okay. Then on to question 4. Question 4 of the survey each week is always something different, called the new question or the unique question of the week. This week is about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I asked in the survey, has your opinion of Bitcoin changed at all over the last year? And have you converted or considered converting any money to Bitcoin for use or investment? From the responses we got, 16% or a little over 16% answered yes to their opinion changing over the last year, either for better or worse. And only about 8.5% of respondents said they have converted or considered converting any money to Bitcoin. So, Doc, do you have any opinions about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in general?
No, I've just been following the Bitcoin in the news just in terms of the fluctuations and the stability of it and the exchanges going up and down and things like that. And, it's just been a passing interest to me, but I have no real professional opinion on it.
Okay. And Jason, what do you think?
I have more than a passing interest in Bitcoin. I really believe, and this is just my point of view, is some people would argue this. I really believe that the very fact that governments are trying so hard to prevent this from happening tells me that it's probably a quantum leap forward in finance. Maybe not necessarily Bitcoin itself, but cryptocurrencies. There will be one that addresses everybody's concerns. Bitcoin seems to be the one that's the closest. And I think the fact that the governments are fighting so hard against it, that just tells me that they see the handwriting on the wall. They know that if this is done right, it replaces national currencies and the archaic government control that they have over the financial system. And I think that is going to be a step in the right direction at some point. So my point of view on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general has been very positive. I think it's a very positive thing. And I think that once the bugs get ironed out, so to speak, it's going to be a viable alternative to fiat currency. Now, the big question is how's that going to happen? And I personally got to tell you, you know how much trouble I had trying to sign on to today's broadcast, right? You can imagine. Yeah. You can imagine my frustration with trying to understand how Bitcoin is managed and used electronically. I mean, I cannot understand the concept of the electronic wallet yet. I really can't. I mean, I hate to say this. I'm a trader. I've been trading for almost 30 years. I mean, I can't. There's certain things I can and can't do. I focused on understanding the markets as well as I can. I can trade the markets beautifully. I usually do very well every year, but there's certain things I can't do. You know, if you saw me in person, you would say that guy cannot match a tie and a shirt. You know, I mean, there's certain things I just can't do. One of them is I cannot understand computers past a certain point. It's like going back to kindergarten for me. And so until I can find someone who can really educate me on Bitcoin, it's going to be harder to actually buy some. I tried to buy some already, and I got confused in the process. I have no idea where that money went. You know, it's in a wallet somewhere. I have no idea what that means. I can't find. I don't know what that means. You know, so that's part of the problem. And it's not because I don't think that there's value there or that it's not secure. It's that I personally find the process of participating unfamiliar enough that it causes me concern to wait. Mm-hmm. If I understood the process of participating better, I probably would have a good portion of my wealth involved in it somehow. Because I really think it's going someplace positive. That's me. You know, that's my point of view.
Yeah. Neil, do you have any thoughts about Bitcoin?
Yeah, just looking at the number 8%, you might think that's low, but I think that's actually really high. The amount of people that are actually thinking about putting some wealth into Bitcoin, some people that may have bought it already, and I like it. One of the reasons is it's actual money that's not created out of debt, because as everyone knows,
that's right. Yeah,
all the money that exists in the world is created out of debt. You know, you have $20 in your wallet. Someone's paying interest on that somewhere. You know,
that's what creates inflation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not prices that, I mean, what amazes me about these central banks, I mean, it shouldn't amaze me, but what they do is, they'll publish an inflation rate, but it's not true because you look at competition in electronics and other things, and the prices go down. And I'll see these reports, and it'll say, oh, and I seriously read this report. A central banker said, oh, we see deflation in televisions and some other things. And I think to myself, that's not deflation. That's prices going down due to innovation and competition. And they
Right.
say, so that gives us an advantage, in quotes, to basically print more money.
Right.
You know,
And the only
so
reason,
it's
Everything
right.
else is going up in price, though.
You know,
the only
so
reason the only reason the United States can afford to print the debt we're doing right now is because we're the world's reserve currency. The reason the U.S. is so afraid of something like Bitcoin is because you could reduce the dependence on the dollar very quickly. All we're going to do is inflate our way out of the problem. And when the world quits using dollars as the reserve currency, they find another viable option. Our debt situation will crash and the dollar will crash. So why would you want your money in a fiat currency when you could put it into something that was a true store of value? And I think that's people are already beginning to see that. So 8%, I think that's phenomenally high too. I think that's great.
I mean, as long as we don't see these big drops like we saw last year, I can't remember, there was a huge drop, wasn't there, one day, 30% or so?
Yeah, against
And
the
then
dollar.
you have the hacking, of course. So you never know who's hacking these things, but that's obviously huge.
If you could figure that out, like I said, there are people that understand what that means and how to protect themselves. I don't. I'd love to find a local Bitcoin think group that meets a couple times a month to share their ideas on how to use it and how to understand it and help create it. I would love to do that because I really think it's got strong potential. You're right. And getting away from the debt is there's no debt created to use it.
And it's not going to be the first either. There's going to be many more, I think, popping up, regional ones, totally underdeveloped countries. They could start their own easily. So I think it's just
really interesting that
an individual could do it as well.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that as a commodity currency, or similar to a normal commodity currency like gold, there's a limited amount of it, but the intrinsic value is privacy and security instead of some practical use.
Sure, you could move a Bitcoin wallet through customs, and no one would ever know that you had $1 million in your pocket. No one would ever know that because there's nothing to declare. It's whatever you have in your iPhone. Unless they actually said, show us what's in your Bitcoin wallet, I would be a little concerned about that. But
if they could even find it, you could.
They don't know your login, do they?
You could hide it in an encrypted file or something.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I have all I hear with that is, honey, you're late for dinner. That's all I hear with that. I don't hear anything like I can make sense of. It's just, to me, I don't even know what an encrypted file is. If I knew what that was, that would be wonderful. But I can't, until I find out what that is, that might be something to learn with regards to using Bitcoin. I don't know. So it's a long process, I think, because I think a lot of people are in that boat too. I know a lot of people in my age group, early to mid 50s, who love the idea of taking advantage of the next big thing in growth, whatever that is, and they can't really find it as easily. And they're looking at medical sciences and advances in healthcare and new products coming on the market. And when you talk to them about Bitcoin, you get two things come right away. Boy, if I understood what was going on there, I'd probably be in it, but I cannot figure it out. So.
But if you're trading it, make sure you don't buy as soon as that non-techie neighbor of yours finally gets in.
Right, that's the whole point. I follow.
That's the top.
Yeah, that's the top.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So that part I get.
Okay. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time here. Do you guys have anything else about the report you want to mention? Or?
Can I ask one quick question, because this is all brand new to me?
Sure.
Can I just ask one? How long have you been doing this, David? How long have you been creating this report?
This is the 48th week, so close to a year now of these surveys. Okay. So I'm just starting to try to expand my subscriber base. We have about 2,300 active subscribers as of today, so to get the report each week and the survey each week.
Are the questions that you ask of the survey each week is of the same format, the same questions, roughly, or?
Yeah, it's the same every week. Asking about the sentiment and confidence about the coming week, and then just question 4 is different every week. So, like today was about, or this last week was about Bitcoin, but it can be anything that's anything that would be interesting to traders, basically. So. If you have a
who makes a decision? Who makes a decision to select that question each week?
I do. But if you have any suggestions, or if anyone else has any suggestions for me for future questions, I would definitely be open to that.
Okay, the only reason I ask is because if it was truly crowdsourced, then you would want to know what the crowd would be interested in knowing more about. There must be some way to create an algorithm or questions or something that would be able to give a better look at what that question might want to be every week. Like right now, it might be heavily layered more towards like what's going on fundamentally than it would be, some other place for the S&P. Because I think the S&P is really toppy. It's starting to look, maybe there's some way that the question might be related to. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, in the membership area, actually, at TimingResearch.com/question. Anyone can go in there, and any of the members can go in there and actually submit a suggestion for a question for a future week. So, and that's how I've gotten a few questions, and then like Jeff at Market Gauge recommended a question one week, and other people as well. So,
I wanted to mention a contrarian indicator that I've seen over the last couple months here, and that was Ford and GM are giving employee discounts to everyone. And right before the 2008-2009 crash, GM was doing the exact same thing. So if you think to yourself, why in the world in a good economy would a company give the employee discount to everyone? Unless you're trying to prop up your sales or your quarterly earnings reports. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, I would think if you're desperate, that you've had like a 3-year bear market, you could say, okay, we're going to help you out, try to help out. If the company's not getting bailed out like all the auto companies did. But that seemed very, very suspicious to me. And if you look at Ford and GM, they're basically flat for a month or two. And it seems strange to me because they're not going to take it away now. So why did they do it in the first place? So I would probably look at insiders selling stocks in Ford and GM, put that together, and I don't think that would be a very good indicator for the economy if they're insiders are selling stocks, and right now you already have sort of trying to prop up some sales with those. Everyone gets the employee discount. It was something I noticed, thought it was relevant to sort of a contrarian webinar like this one.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So. I think we're about out of time here, so I want to thank my guests, Doc Severson of TradingConceptsInc.com, Neil Batho of TraderReview.net, and Jason Jankovsky of TheLionOnline.net. So check the archive email, or if you're watching the archive below the video, you'll have links for more information about my guests, and thank you for attending.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. I really enjoyed it. Sorry for taking so long to sign in, but I really enjoyed it.
That's all right.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.